Greetings to all. I am Jina and my thesis topic is redevelopment of an informal settlement. Informal settlement are those settlements where the quality of life of the inhabitants is low due to various factors like lack of planning and migration. The housing in these areas are disorganized and random. Therefore, my aim is to address the housing issues of these sectors architecturally within the built language of the community, focusing on low-rise, high-density housing, enhancing livelihood and economic activities, and fully developing the area socially, economically, and aesthetically. The criteria for selecting informal settlements are as listed below. And the consequences of informal settlements on an architectural perspective are the lack of hierarchy of spaces, the density pattern which is congested, and the unfavorable lighting and sanitary conditions. So why this project? I chose this project because more than 45% of the people living in the world are based on informal settlements. Therefore, this project acts as a study on the issue and how it can be tackled or overcome through built spaces. And the site is Puriti, which is located at Fort Kochi. And this site was chosen because it is one of the major tourism attraction of the state and the country, and is located nearby the urban core of Ernakulam. Therefore, building up this area can act as a catalyst for development of the state and the country as well, and also attract foreign and other civil investors interested in funding in similar kinds of projects in the nearby future. So this project is a government proposal under the Smart City Mission and the PMAY. It has an area of 9.22 acres, and the history of the site dates back to 1341 AD. And the connectivity of the site is, it can be accessed through roadways and waterways. The demographic details of the site were deducted from the site survey, the questionnaires, the interviews, and the physical documentation conducted at the site from January till late February. And from what I have studied or analyzed is that most of the people belong to the Muslim community, and they work in the unorganized sector or as casual laborers. And the sanitary condition in the area is very poor, and it has equal ratio of males and females. And the total population of the area is 1,300, and the total number of households are 298. When it comes to the context, the site is surrounded at the entrance by a community hall and an existing temporary market, and also a higher secondary school. And then there's a boating area, and then there is, within the site at the north, there's a mosque known as Turiti Juma Masjid, and there's a training school at the east, and it is for the 11th and 12th standard students, and it functions very less. And then there is an existing apartment which is built by a social group, and basically the weather of the area is very hot with strong winds. Then the various mappings that I have deducted from the studies are as these. The ecology of the area, the site has very less vegetation, and the circulation is also very poor with lesser accessways to individual houses. And the topography of the land is flat. Also, the roofing types and the lighting and ventilation are also poor, and the roofing is mainly tile roofs, which changed recently to flat roofs. Then the activity at the entrance, there is more activity, and further away from the entrance, it is a very silent place. Also, the housing in these areas, most of them are kacha houses, and the structure has efflorescence due to the salinity of the water, since it is located in the backwaters and nearby the Arabian Sea. Also, the site is sandwiched between two heritage conservation areas, one at the Fort Kochi and then the other at the Mattanjeri area. Also, the houses are basically has a rectangular or square layout with basic utilities like living area and kitchen, and some of them doesn't even have a toilet, and they have to walk almost 1 kilometer to 2 kilometer to access them. And most of the buildings are divided and used by different families. A single house is divided by different families and used, and the site is surrounded on either side and at the north by the Kalvati Canal. And then I chose Villa Verde in Chile by architect Alejandro Arena and Aranya Housing by architect B.V. Doshi as my literature case studies. And the Villa Verde focuses on how to develop compact housing and also how to develop concepts with respect to the context and also the use of various building materials with reference to the site. And then Adanya Housing focuses more on zoning and as well as the introduction of other facilities other than housing. And then the Belapur incremental housing and the realization community Auroville Pondicherry was taken as live case studies. The Belapur incremental housing by Charles Correa throws more light on the concept of prototyping and the concept of hierarchy and the various ways in which open spaces can be provided, etc. And then the Auroville community housing or the realization community housing focuses more on the use of building materials like mud architecture and the CSEB blocks, how it can be effectively used in buildings. And then a comparative analysis was deducted with reference to the roofing, the building materials, the housing type, the orientation and the site and its context, the circulation, etc. And the design brief was implemented from the project requirements, the site analysis, and the design parameters. The design parameters include the space analysis, the planning, and the structure, which includes the consideration of the density, the user group, the infrastructure requirements, the functionality, the scale, the connectivity and nature of dwelling units, the multifunctional spaces, the incremental nature, and the use of materials. And the requirements were deducted, which focused on the community. And first, the housing was provided, which was divided into individual housing for people with land on, or the households with land ownership, and apartments for households without the ownership. And then the livelihood was divided into community development center, which provided the basic skills, livelihood skills for the people, and the commercial spaces on how to execute the skills provided. And then the upliftment was provided through the primary school, which provides education for the primary school kids, and the bridges, which provides accessibility to the site, which makes it more inclusive to the other areas. And then the service was provided through the waste collection units and the parking areas. The concept focuses on how to convert the informal settlements to self-sustaining urban neighborhoods. This is a phased and incremental transformation. Therefore, the various aspects like housing, livelihood, and services were considered, which leads to an economic boost. And an action plan was deducted and also created. And then the planning features was also considered, like connectivity, access, the hybrid nature, and the incrementality and the walkability. And the zoning is done in such a way that the bridges were expanded and the new ones were proposed connecting Fort Kochi and Mattancherry, and also the existing footover bridges were modified. And at the entrance, the parking was provided and the apartment were segregated into two with respect to the height, and by considering the height. And also at the entrance, there was a commercial center with the ground floor provided for parking. And also the primary school shares a playground of the private training institute because it does not function all the time, and it can act as the same space and reduce the usage of land. And then the different phases in which the project was implemented was deducted. And also the evolution was done. At first it was shaped into a grid structure, uh, but it was formal. Then it was converted to an organic shape, which was too disorganized. Then an organized pattern was formed with a little informality added to it. Then the applications like the hierarchy of spaces were provided from private to public spaces, and the perceptions of the user changes while traveling from one space or while moving from one space to another. And also there was incorporation of courtyards for cooling effect and the addition of spaces which can also be converted. The provision of livelihoods like the skill development center, the computer aided classroom, and also mud architecture for labor, and the provision for selling the goods made by them in the sieving and food processing unit. Then this is the master plan. At the entrance from the bridge, there's a parking area, and nearby it is the apartment number 1. Further away from it towards the east is apartment number 2. And then at the entrance itself is a small commercial building or the mixed use building. And then there is the primary school at the entrance itself. And the individual housing units were provided with adequate open spaces at the center, and a community center was provided within the major axis without hindering the view of the mosque. Then the individual units is clustered with denominations given like 1, 2, and 3. 1 for 65 square meter, which is for the 4-member family, 2 for 6-member family, and 3 for 2-member family. Then it was shaped into a team of 3 or a group of 3 and placed according to the site and the context. And then the waste management, the septic tank was provided with 150 for people in each, considering 150 people in each cluster. And the necessary materials were also added to the buildings. And then the apartment number 1, it has 6-member units and 2-member units. At the ground floor, there are 16 units. At the first floor, which is the base floor for converting, and which is 11 units, and the second floor with 10 units. And these are the concepts which was used while designing and which led to the design. And then the apartment number 2 was shaped in this way, considering the site land area available, and it has 6-member units and 4-member units, and it is joined from 3 separate buildings. And then the primary school with classroom from KG to 4th standard, and the mixed use building with migrant housing at the top, and shops at the first floor, and parking at the ground floor, and the community development center with skill developing things like sieving room and livelihood development, things like saving room and food processing unit, which is connected by a corridor way, and changing rooms in between. And then at the entrance, the office and the community science center, and from there the library and the gaming center can be accessed. And at the ground floor, there's a gym which is located near an open space, and also the classrooms for computer based classrooms and the skill development classrooms are also placed. The solid waste management was placed in such a way that from the collection units, the waste can be transferred to the central plant at Mundamveli. Then the special topic is from the material palette itself. At first, the low-cost building materials were listed, and from that, mud architecture was chosen because of its advantages like the thermal mass, the structural aspects like high load-bearing capacity, the sustainability, the maintenance, the fire resistance, noise reduction, etc. And it also provides labor for the inhabitants. And also the technical aspects like the stabilization of walls, the joints and internal reinforcement were studied. And for this project, instead of bamboo and wood, steel reinforcement is used. And because of its more stabilized in nature and durability, and then the preparation of homework and how it is used, like in the base, the foundation is used as earth foundation, and then the slanting walls have rammed earth and the others have stabilized earth blocks, and a little insulation is added to stabilize the thermal capacity, and then the roof is precast concrete. And then we have the advantages, sustainable advantages of these walls, the carbon footprint, etc. were studied. And then and this is the end of my thesis topic. Thank you and have a nice day.